It does sound like a particularly angry bee is under the bonnet. This is Hubner. I am Ian Seabrook. I am in New Zealand, and this is a Daihatsu Fellow Max. It's adorable. So if I sound excited, it's because I am. This tiny little terror is a Daihatsu Fellow Max. It is a K car. It is built to the K car regulations of its day. And in those days, the maximum size was 3 meters, the length of a Mini. And the maximum engine size was 360 cc, which is why it was also marketed in Australia and New Zealand as the Daihatsu 360 or 360X in some markets. It is an astonishing little car. Now, there was no restriction on what type of engine you could fit. So in this case, Daihatsu went for a 2-stroke engine. Suzuki also went for the 2-stroke engine option at this time, whereas Honda went 4-stroke with its own little the N360. So they became very, very prime rivals, and we'll get to the engine because the engine is something else. But just before we dive in, little fake scoops here at the back. Got this information board from when these cars were marketed new. Just look at the extras, you know, radio, heater, demister, washers, 2-speed wipers, flow-through ventilation, tinted glass, backing lights, parcel tray, locking fuel cap, cigar lighter, white wall tyres originally. Sadly, it doesn't have them anymore. High back reclining seats, freeway boot opening. Look forward to discovering what that is. The wing mirrors, the crash blinker lights, hazard lights by any other name. 4-speed synchromesh gearbox, water-cooled 360cc engine, 72 miles an hour and 55 mpg. I apologise for the shadow, but it's blocking some of that for you. But yeah, it was the cheapest car you could buy new in Australia and presumably in New Zealand as well. I love the tiny little wheel trims on what look like 10-inch wheels, very reminiscent of a Datsun. But yeah, quite astonishing. Let's have a nose inside, and just to before we go in, I'll just do something to show you the height of the thing, because this is me leaning on the roof, and I'm not a particularly tall person. You'll note the excellent aerial here, the best old coat hanger design. They are the very best that money can buy, or they were back then anyway. But let's have a nose inside. We open the wide opening door. And for a start, we've got these amazing instructions with how to start the engine. I mean, who's going to read all this before you go? But yeah, there's all sorts of things to do. Immediately after the engine starts, push in the starter button half stroke to the position of making click and return the clutch pedal slowly. Yeah, lovely stuff. After you push in the starter button completely and race a few times, drive the vehicle raising the engine revolution. Just amazing stuff. Proper Japanese English back in the early days. But you know, I'm crouched down on the floor now to get at the right height for the interior. We've got the full through ventilation. We've got a light switch here, indicators here with the main beam flasher. There's the key. We've got the horn with the Max. There is no Fellow Max badge on this car. I'm just getting the wheel nice and straight. But there is a good horn on this one. I'm just going to squeeze in so I can show you more. We've got the Daihatsu Max blanking plug there. Maybe that would have been a little baby rev counter on some models. Here we go, little speedometer, 93,000 miles on the clock. Temperature gauge, water gauge. It's the choke there. This one comes fully equipped with USB power outlets, but we've got a little radio in here, a holder for his phone. And even a tiny little glove box with some tools in it, spark plug tools by the look of it. It's all absolutely magnificent. It's actually been in a bit of a bump at some point, and it seems to have kicked the roof slightly out of shape. But nonetheless, it's still going. And down here we find the notchy little 4-speed gear lever. Not the gear levers, 4-speed, and a little handbrake, but very comfortable seats. But you'll note immediately how cramped the footwell is. And look how tiny that brake pedal is. If I get my enormous clodhoppers in, you'll see my feet are rather too large. So to brake, I'm having to bend my foot sideways to be able to operate the brake pedal. I'm starting to think I might actually take my shoes off, because otherwise I go down on the brake and hit the throttle, and that leads to rather too much excitement. It's telling the owner has got some earplugs in here. I say that's a very sensible upgrade, and he also has a cup holder because luxury. I don't think I'm even going to try and get in the back, to be honest. There is not a lot of room there. I don't think I'm going to fit. But you know, little pockets in the door there. And yeah, here's the heater controls. So we're set to fresh rather than whatever that's. I'll recirc. So we've got recirculation going on. That's room or defrost. So that's where the height goes. But if we look under the bonnet, I'll show you why life is actually very interesting. And here is the dinky little engine. Well, more specifically, there it is. All 2 cylinders of it. You can see it's a little inline twin, transversely mounted, driving the front wheels. The very first Daihatsu Fellow was actually rear wheel drive. But yeah, look at the tiny little distributor cap down there. We've got an alternator though, so relatively modern, a little stabilizer bar there. But one curiosity is that this is the cooling fan arrangement. Nice big fan there. That's all well and good. That's kind of what you want. But the outlet for it is straight into the car. So when it gets hot, you get hot as well. So that's a slightly unusual design. Just while we're looking at the general furniture in here, I was quite impressed to see a plastic expansion bottle. And you'll notice the spare wheel doesn't have a centre. And that's because the brake drum is an element here, and the wheel rim bolts to the outer edge of the brake drum. See, it's slightly thin there. Very much like Renault's of the immediate post-war era. The 4CV had a very similar arrangement. So yeah, maybe it allows for bigger brake drums because it can take up more of the space within these tiny 10-inch wheels. So that's a little curiosity. There's the wiper motor there. The jack is mounted under here as well. But what is quite interesting is this is one of very few cars, possibly the only one, I don't know, that had a factory expansion tube. So if we come down at the front, you can see this bulge here. That is the expansion tube underneath. Let's see if I can get underneath. So there it is. So the expansion tube, very, very popular in 2-stroke circles. And it's all about getting the charge to go into the cylinder as efficiently as possible. And those allow it using science, which is not something I understand all that much. And unlike a lot of 2-stroke engines, it's got separate lubrication, so you don't have to pre-mix. It runs a ratio of 25:1. I believe it can be adjusted. So this tank holds the oil. You fill up with petrol as you ordinarily would, and then you just simply drive the car. So that's just brilliant. Proper Japanese spec mirrors sort of hanging on the end. And we'll go and have a look at the boot, see if we can work out what this freeway nonsense is. Here's the key. There we go. Yeah, there we go. That's one way the boot opens, and we can see you can just about fit some boots in it, and more tools, probably quite sensible. There's the fuel filler neck on the inside, so at least that's protected from the elements, and little damper towers there. Don't know what the rear suspension is actually. It looks like semi-trailing arms on tiny little coil springs, as much as I can tell, which isn't very much from down that angle. But yeah, I don't know what the freeway position is. Maybe this doesn't have it. It's got a good old spring on it. And again, this was at the old school .co.nz meet we went to. There we go. It's been in the old school scene for quite a while by the look of it. No hatchback, but I believe you could get this flavour as a 4-door, and I think it was the only K car you could get that came in that shape. Whoa, high-speed dog. Yeah, it does sound absolutely crazy. Right, I should put my seatbelt on, which is a quite interesting design in itself. I shall, oh, bashed the microphone. I shall select first gear and we shall go. And we're up to 30. Woohoo! Operate the non-servo drum brakes with my bare foot. I can manage that. People just laughing everywhere. It's quite amusing. The synchro mesh isn't very good, so I'm having to go easy on the gear changes. Oh no, that speed hump looks enormous. Oh, didn't double the clutch on the way down. Oh, this is absolutely hilarious, but oh my gosh, it's Bigfoot. Oh no, it's just a BMW 4x4. Everything looks huge. Double the clutch, oh, still failed. So yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. Does stop well, can apparently generate 1G of braking going on the stoppers hard. Oh, listen to it go! It's just the most ridiculous little car I think I've ever driven. The pedals are canted over a bit to the middle of the car, which is not surprising because the wheel arch is kind of there. And my feet can't be that far away from the front bumper. So yeah, when new, these engines were rated at 31 brake horsepower or 33 PS, which from 360cc is insane. Cracking little engines. But that's not the end of it. They developed an SS version for rallying, which had, I think it was 44 brake horsepower. From 360cc, so it was over 100 brake horsepower per litre in the 1970s. It's nothing short of astonishing. What are these people doing? So I think really the K-car culture really shows you just what the Japanese were capable of. I mean, the ride's not bad either for a tiny little car. Will I get through that gap? Of course I will. Oh, there we go. Got a rev match, yes. I mean, it really doesn't feel that slow, but then it shouldn't do really, even though the owner says this engine isn't in great shape. He reckons the carburetor's a bit leaky, so it's a bit down on power. It doesn't feel sluggish, but we've got a car that weighs 510 kilograms and has about 30 brake horsepower, so it's got slightly more power than a 2CV and less weight. The 2CV is more like 600 kilograms. So no wonder it feels quite charmingly brisk. I mean, it's not a peaceful car, is it? You would never describe it as peaceful. Oh, and the coolant fan has kicked in. Now my toes are getting warmed up by the heater. That is a very strange system, but I suppose these large windows do open up front, and the rears do pop out as well. So yeah, it is possible to keep yourself cool. And actually my bare feet are enjoying the experience of being gently warmed by the engine. But because it is so absolutely tiny, it does get a certain amount of attention as you're driving past. It's yeah, I'm loving the experience. Further proof that little cars are more fun. Ultimately, emissions regulations meant these tiny two-strokes were doomed in the end. I think it was in 1975, the year after this car was built, they put up the capacity. It went up to 550, but were more stringent about emissions. But still, such ingenuity in these tiny little motor cars. Right, Dyers Pass Road. Oh, and I haven't forgotten wipers, don't you worry. Come on, little car. Can't afford to ease off. I would say hill climbing is not this car's forte. I would quite like to go for second, but I fear I'll lose too much momentum if I do. Oh, I'm going to have to. So it's going to need a bit of double declutching. Because that's where the power is. Power is all at the top end of the rev range. Oh, I'm having to ease off. It does sound like a particularly angry bee is under the bonnet. Whoa! The steering is, yeah, it doesn't exactly provide you with thrilling feedback. It's quite twitchy. It feels like a box rather than rack and pinion. But I could be wrong on that. Having the time of my life at almost no speed at all. I wonder if we can get a section straight enough to try for 50. We're at 40 at the moment. Has 40 ever felt this scary? No, I don't think it has. At least not since I drove an Austin 7. Oh, there we go, there's 50. And slow down. What an amazing road. Right, wiper demonstration. It's a squeegee on the end of here. So it's a manual pump and we operate the switch dustly. And, oh, might be a bit low on screen wash actually. And sadly there is quite the triangle of doom and the wipers don't come very high up the windscreen. But they are very little and sweet and 2-speed I think. Oh. Apparently she doesn't want to run anymore. Well, you can have a rest and I'll do some summing up. So there we go, that's one of the most hilarious driving experiences I've had in my life. Very grateful to Wayne for letting me have a drive of this. It's his daily driver. This is his car. I mean, the bloke must be insane, but in a frankly very, very good way. So yeah, I think he's had it 12, 14 years, something like that, as his daily driver. Occasionally he has to replace an engine and you know, rebuild the broken one and then swap them back again. But yeah, absolutely astonishing and a fine indication of just how innovative the Japanese can be. They really are excellent at extracting lots of power from screaming little engines, and that continued right through to the 1990s with stuff like the Suzuki Cappuccino, Honda Beat. Yeah, good times from crazy screaming little engines. I absolutely love it, and I hope you've loved it too. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget you can go to hubnut.org where you can buy all the merchandise, and there are various support options to support me making crazy videos about crazy cars. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe before you go, and I shall see you in a future video. Farewell. Gravel, not nice on bare feet.
Nearly forgot. We also have calendars, of course. Not a huge number left, but there we have some. They live under the table, that's why I forgot them. That's the bag that I put stuff in when it's packed and ready to go, and my bin is currently full of tape. Hello, George.